Okay, let's chat with James and Luke. So, welcome to the first episode of Let's Chat, the podcast from Property and Poppadoms. I'm the founder of Property and Poppadoms, and it is the fastest growing property networking event in the UK.
And I'm Luke Biddle. I'm James's business coach, and I'm here to ask the spicy questions and share a few insights on the way. And we're joined today by none other than the amazing Danny Inman. He's our first guest. Welcome, Danny. And thanks so much for being here. We know this one is going to be a smasher.
Well, thanks for having me. Amazing to be on the podcast and on the first one especially. So really privileged.
Good stuff. So before we start properly, I'd like to thank the team at Blue Bricks. So they'll give you the latest insights into the property market, and also to 978 Finance. They provide finance for property investors and developers. So, okay, let's chat.
So, Danny, what do you do and why do you do it?
What do I do? I think if you think of anything related to property, that's probably what we do or have done in the last 16, 17 years now. So 17 years ago, just after the financial crisis, or at the end of the financial crisis, got involved in property investment, have had a sourcing agency, letting agency, have been involved in the property education space, large HMO portfolio, now probably large-scale developers is probably what we're best known for, delivering up to 50 million a year GDV. We have an apart hotel brand, a property community, much like James has. So if it's property related, we've probably been involved in it in some way in the last 17, 18 years. Why I do it, I ask myself every other day. But probably how I got into it is a different question to why I do it now. I completely fell on it by accident. I was sent to a 3-day training as somebody else's plus one at the last minute. And that's how I got into it. The why I got it, the why I do it today is probably very different. I enjoy it. I enjoy challenges, probably slightly sadistic when you talk about the property market as a whole and all of its challenges that we have. But for me, it's about people and it's about problem solving, and they are two of my favourite things. So, yeah, that's why I do it today.
Good stuff. So, would you like to tell us a little bit about what you were doing before you started in property?
So I was signed as a professional rugby league player at 15, which you probably see from size related. I was built for rugby. But didn't really enjoy it when it came to 18, 19, bit before player welfare. They basically said you now have to choose between further education and rugby. You're going to play rugby full time, or you're going to go to university. And I was watching some of I call them old boys, but now I'm that old, but like 34, 35 at the time, they were retiring and they were going to be painters or decorators or whatever it may be. And no discredit to any of those sort of jobs, but it was like you battered your body for 20 years and then you're going to start a career again. None of you were financially sound or set up, and even at that age it was kind of I need to do something else. So went to university, did a graduate scholarship with Lang O'Rourke. When I went into the graduate scholarship, civil engineering, and they basically said everything I'd studied at university, they had a computer or a system that did it, and I was going to be a glorified data entry clerk for 2 or 3 years. That sent my head west as well. So walked away from that. So two things: I'd made my dad very proud by being a rugby player, made my mum very proud by doing a degree, and then disappointed them both walking away from both of them. And my head fell off a little bit. We've discussed previously, I've had challenges, mental health, illness around that sort of age, early 20s, and I was delivering Chinese takeaways at the point that I got into property, which fits in wonderfully with Property and Poppadoms, obviously. But at the start of me getting into property, I was a food distribution service, also known as a takeaway delivery driver. Yeah,
Delivery before delivery.
Before it happened, yeah, setting trends basically. Yeah. So that's it. And got into property with the education, and away we went.
So how has property shaped you as a person?
I think property fits my personality more than it shaping me in a such a way. I'm relatively non-emotional and fairly logical, which It's a trained skill off the back of the mental health challenges I had when I was a bit younger. But that property doesn't care about your emotions, really. It moves in quite a logical way. And I think that's kind of matched me quite a lot. It's numbers, it's problem solving, it's looking for solutions, creativity and all of that. So I think it was more that my developed personality suited property than it's really shaped me. It's kind of a sliding doors, perfect timing moment in that I felt I had to create my personality that way for my health, and then a strategy or a career came and that sort of fell completely into line with the personality that I'd created, I think.
So you've founded Prosperity Network.
Yeah.
So that was obviously off the back of your successful property career.
Yeah.
But what were the reasons for that, and how do you keep it relevant?
Honestly, on the back of telling you I'm an emotional person, I'm going to tell you I threw a tantrum when COVID hit, which I'm aware is a complete hypocrisy, but a tantrum by my standards, I would say. When COVID hit, the education world, and I've been around the education world of property since day dot, really, as a student, and then seeing it all through to being main speaker and different things like that. When COVID hit, I really saw my ass with how everybody else behaved in the space, because they did one of two things: that either disappeared and people have spent 20, 25 grand training and you've gone into your shell and you're not communicating with people, and you owe them a service here, they've paid money, you need to communicate what the plan is, or settle people down. Or they started to sell based on fear, that it was the great crash, the end of time, and I've got all of the answers to show you how to make so much money during this great crash that's coming because of this terrible time. And I was thinking, it's terrible, this. People are scared enough as it is. So Prosperity wasn't meant to be a product. It was literally first week of COVID lockdown, we basically said, we're all shit scared. Like, let's just do an open Zoom, get as many people on. I didn't even know what Zoom was, but let's get people on Zoom and have a chat about what we're all doing. How am I speaking to my broker? What am I saying to my tenants? Like, if I've got a sale going through, how am I going to make that progress? And that was all it was. It was all it was designed to do. And we had 900 people register for the call in the first week. So I was like, fucking hell. And I was that much of a caveman that I didn't know you could pay for an unlimited Zoom. So I did the same call 3 times in the first week until somebody told me you could pay for unlimited Zoom. I was like, oh, Christ, okay. So, yes, we did that for 12 weeks, I think it was. And it came to May, and that was when the first lockdown was being eased. And I just thought, right, that's COVID over now then. We're getting out, it'll slowly dissipate, it'll calm down, away you go. And it was only then people were saying, well, what's next? I was like, oh, you haven't planned for anything to be next. So between May and August, and obviously we went back into another lockdown, we sort of rushed together a little bit of a product that we thought people would benefit from and needed. And we had, August the 15th, I think it was, officially our launch in 2020. We had 250 people that had subscribed. But Prosperity as a whole, I actually designed for somebody else to do. I didn't want to do it. I told somebody else pre-COVID that that's the model you need to shift through, away from 20 grand trainings, expensive trainings, build a community like you're doing with Property and Poppadoms, add value through community, get good people together in a space, and you can't charge 20 grand for it, but you'll have a good subscription model that will add value. But the big guys that I was telling to do it, because I didn't want to do it, I'm a property developer, I don't see myself as this educator or an education space at all. The big guys I was telling to do it, they basically had too big of an oil boat that they couldn't turn around, and they couldn't move away from that to that. It was too late for a lot of them. So yeah, another complete accident. Getting into property was an accident. Prosperity was a bit of an accident. So I've had a good couple of accidents, I guess, but yeah, it's worked out.
Well, they're definitely the kind of accidents we love. So you talked about that your kind of analytical personality was a good fit for property.
Yeah.
So how does that shape your investment philosophy and the decisions that you make on what you invest into?
Yeah, more logic. I guess people view me as analytical, but I think I'm more logical than analytical. And having a lot of information, if you react logically to it, helps you to make right decisions. So, because there are some analytical people that do nothing off the back of being analytical, because you can ultimately analyze your way into a decision or out of a decision. And I think, paralysis analysis is very real in our space in property. What it has made me do is to take non-emotional decisions to most of our investment processes. So whenever we're buying because we have faith in the exit, we have faith in the demand. It's all pre-qualified, it's all backed up by data. And even throughout COVID, when everyone's going crash, 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 we've been going probably not. And here's the reasons why. And it's completely unemotional. You know, everybody who's been screaming the market's going to crash during COVID, most of them are afraid. And fear brings emotion, which brings emotional outbursts, which brings irrational decisions. So I think a lot of our success has come off the back of rationality and just making rational decisions, not falling out with everybody all of the time, not overly entering heated arguments. If we're having a debate, it's an informed debate, and to try and learn from the other side. I don't believe I'm always right, but if you're telling me I'm wrong, show me why I'm wrong, basically. So I think that's probably the main thing, rationality. I think we very rarely overly react to circumstances and situations, and we've been in some very sticky situations and very challenging situations that I think stand a better chance of getting resolved by rationality, and I think that's what we've stuck to.
I suppose as well, sort of a rational approach doesn't sell a course. A crash is going to sell a course. It's going to make it a lot more appealing.
Yeah.
So I suppose they're appealing to that dynamic to further their sales, aren't they?
100%. And yeah, people buy into hype, good and bad.
Yeah.
People want to know that they can get rich quickly, that they can take advantage of a situation, they can benefit from a terrible time, and all of these things. And you know, one thing I've seen in property, no matter what the situation is, it's never as bad or as good as people make out. You know, it's somewhere in the middle, but that's not very sexy. It doesn't sell courses. No one's going to pay me 25 grand to go. It's not going to be that bad. It's not going to be that good. Like, you know, it's somewhere, but as long as you're consistent over a long period of time, loads of okays create a really great experience and a great life. And I think that's a hard sell. You know, financial freedom in 7 days is a big seller, but the average I've seen is 3 to 5 years, and that's 3 to 5 years of genuine commitment and hard work and slog and some really shit times. But you're not going to give me 20 grand to tell you it's 3 to 5 years of a little bit of shit and extra effort, basically. So you're spot on. It is. I've been so anti-hype in my life because it's damaging. It is damaging. It sets unrealistic expectations. It gives other people imposter syndrome, all of these things that you see. And actually, they're just comparing themselves potentially to somebody who hasn't really done what they're saying they've done, and all of those different scenarios that we've all seen. So, yeah, rationality is absolutely essential, but it's not a top seller.
No, I mean it's not, and I think that's why prosperity is as popular as it is, because you've come from it with the honest approach.
Yeah,
it's the non-sort of sales hype approach. If you remain consistent along the way and you do those small tasks daily, then you'll see a big achievement over a longer period of time.
Yeah.
But like you say, that's not you don't want to be paying 25 grand to hear that advice, do you?
So really it's a get rich slow scheme.
Get rich slow. Yeah, get wealthy slow over a period of time. And they used to be contrarian that. It's interesting now because obviously people have seen our success off the back of saying things like that. You got the guys that have spent 10 years saying it's get rich quick, who are now converting to tell you it's no longer get rich quick because they've seen it that contrarian noise now sells a little bit. So yeah, you have to pivot. I would never reinvent. I wouldn't say you've got to reinvent yourself because I believe that to be the truth. And I'm not going to tell people a different truth to try and get more sales. But
so no new Coke from you then?
No new Coke. No, same old Coke.
So what was your biggest mistake along the way, and what lessons did you learn from those?
Oh, God, several. Too much trust too early in the wrong people, I think, was a big one. I JV'd early with a set of people in hindsight I shouldn't have JV'd with. And that's why, to a degree, it's why I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with our space as property and education and seminar world or networking or whatever you come to call it. Because there were a couple of people that I really bought into that were put on a pedestal that in hindsight they didn't deserve to be on. And our space does create that. It creates glorified superstars that are actually not doing the thing that they're being idolized to do. And I partnered with a few of them, the I think good people, but they're just that's what our space creates. It creates this need of, you're now on a pedestal, so you've got to continue to act like you deserve to be on the pedestal. And a couple of them were investing partners, and I was young at the time, talking early to mid-20s, and I was the one that had to turn around a shitstorm that they got us into. Basically, I had a role, I did my role, none of them did their role, and then I had to come in and clean it up as a young kid. And that, it taught me then my abilities were probably a bit more than I'd given myself credit for at that stage, and to not overestimate or trust but tie up your camels, I always say, and trust but verify, or whatever you want to say. In that circumstance, it was, they're on a pedestal, they must be great. Invested time, energy, money, other people's money brought to the party, and I ended up 60-70 grand out of pocket to make sure the people I brought to it weren't out of pocket, and they kind of walked away relatively scot-free. Best lesson I've had, but biggest mistake I've had, definitely, because since then I do verify and I trust I trust everyone, but I want to make sure you're doing the things that you say you're doing. Like, what evidence do you have? What can you show me? So yeah, that was one that cost me, definitely. Another one, probably recruiting too late, in the early stages. When you're early in business, you have a period of time where you look at the cost of recruitment rather than the value of recruitment. So, you run yourself to exhaustion until you've got no choice to recruit, and then you recruit and they flog the two of you to exhaustion until you've got no choice to get the third person. And actually, the most growth that I've had in business and life and personally and property and everything is when I've recruited ahead of need. Get somebody in before you need them, like reduce the amount you take, because if it frees up your time to do higher returning tasks, higher pound per hour value tasks, it's invaluable. So having that faith in growth and looking at employment as an investment, not a cost to the business, I think that about 5 years in, that was a big lesson for me. But I flogged myself for 5 years to get to that point.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of business owners that are doing what I call $10 tasks.
Yeah.
You need to be doing $1,000, $100 and $10 tasks in your business. And too many are doing $10 tasks instead 100%. Of sourcing them out so they can do more $1,000 tasks.
Oh, I've took that to the extreme now. In every area of my life, we don't cook, we don't clean, we don't do anything. Because my perception now is, if I'm doing a £10 an hour task, the pounds per hour, good old British, but and my hourly rate is 500 quid. I'm robbing 490 quid from myself by doing that task in that hour.
And you're taking jobs away from £10 people.
100%. I'm stealing from myself. I'm stealing from them. And there's no one that wins in that scenario. Absolutely no one. So to the absolute extreme, I don't drive. We don't, we don't clean and cook at home. We have full-time help at home. Just because I know my value. And then people go, well, what if you've got a spare hour and you're doing nothing? I'm like, well, resting in that hour has a £500 an hour value to me, like not filling it with tasks at £10 an hour that somebody else could be doing. And you got to get over yourself a little bit in that scenario, because there is some people that will be judgmental and, oh, are you too good for £10 an hour tasks? And you kind of go, well, not too good as in I'm a knob, as in too good I can make more money in the same hour elsewhere. If somebody said to you, you can do that for 500 quid or that for a tenner, which would you do? So yeah, big learning, definitely huge.
I suppose it's about valuing that time as well, that in terms of there's only so many hours in the day, there's only so much one person can complete in those hours. Yeah. And why would you do the £10 an hour task when you can do the £500 an hour task, as you rightly say? It's
cost versus value, scarcity versus abundance. It's the same thing, because people go, I will save myself £10 an hour by doing that task. And I go, no, you're costing yourself 490 quid or whatever your relevant value is at that time. It's a complete false economy. And again, logic makes a lot of sense to me, but a lot of people, emotion, but I can save 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 quid by not doing it. By doing it myself rather than not doing it. Just, that doesn't make sense to a logical person.
I think what you've proved, though, is that you can build value, not only for yourself, but for others. Yeah. So it makes sense for you to spend the time that you want to spend working, creating lives, roles, value, the ripple effect of your business into other lives as well.
100%.
And you talk a lot about personal development. Yeah. So for you, what are the key habits or mindsets that are important for an investor or somebody in property?
Yeah, I have a, again, love-hate relationship with personal development because a lot of it's fluff. I really struggle with fluff. I like a logical person. I like practical steps of what you can do. So I'm really big high performance habits, anything by Benjamin Hardy, 10x is greater than 2x, is easier than 2x, and Who Not How, and all of these books. I absolutely love those books because they speak to my logical side. You know, Tony Robbins and people like that, I get it, but a lot of the time they get people pumped up and then people go away and they then need to look for the next dopamine hit of how am I going to get pumped up again, but there's not a practical activity on what they're going to do on the back of it. So for me, it's always been about what are the practical steps. That's what I love about personal development. Show me practical steps, marginal gains, you know, the little 1%, the little habits. Love high performance habits, love focal point, love atomic habits, because they just scream at my logic when it's, you know, I don't really get on with 10x by Grant Cardone because it just feels like a load of hype and a lot of noise, and I'm already quite self-motivated. I just need to put my energy into practical steps. So yeah, for me, anything practical I adore in personal development. I think it sings to me. A lot of other people find it boring because you don't get the same dopamine hit from it, but I don't have the need for I kind of have that energy to do the work. I just need to know what direction it needs to go in. So I guess it's a horses and courses thing, isn't it? But my personal development is those, what are my practical steps? How can I improve as an individual in my life practically? Show me the evidence that it's going to work. Don't get me buzzed up and not know where to go. I need to know what direction.
So more of the transformational than the motivation.
Absolutely. Yeah, massively.
I mean, so that's how you are now, and that's what you focus on now. So if you could go back 10 years, what would you tell that younger self?
Do more of that is all I would say, honestly. Have a bit of patience because the time's going to go quickly anyway. So, you know, you wait for the results, delayed gratification. I did a lot of the things, I think. I think it's hard to look back and say, I'd have done a lot differently, because in hindsight, I think my success is because I innately did a lot of these things and not all by accident 10 years ago. Now you can't, I read a book and go, yeah, I've done that really. And I didn't know I was doing it consciously. And, but yeah, keep the faith would probably be the biggest thing. Like there are times where you go, oh, sake, like what is the point? And because you don't see an immediate return, but that habit formation's just been invaluable for me. Like posting twice a day is the same as brushing my teeth. Responding to messages that might not get me any business today, but I genuinely believe will come back to me in 5 or 6 years. Like speaking to myself 10 years ago, I would genuinely say it's worth it. You're doing the right things. Like don't doubt that responding to 100 messages a day that feel like you're not getting any business today doesn't come back to you in the future, because it genuinely does.
So Danny, what was your darkest day and how did you turn the lights on?
In my whole life, or oh God, dark. Yeah, very dark. I was ill. I was very, 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 very ill. Very, very ill. Like, and seriously ill, mentally ill. When property probably saved my life, and that I don't like fluff, so this feels a little bit soft and a little bit airy-fairy to me. But what property did at the time, it did it for me, was it gave me a focus and gave me a purpose, and I was really missing those two things in my life at that point in time. I was desperate, absolutely desperate. I wanted to go into the forces, but the forces couldn't have me because I'd taken antidepressants at the time. I think you needed to be 2 years clear of antidepressants to be able to go into the forces. That was the end of the world. That was a disaster. Life wasn't worth living because I couldn't go into the forces. Police force, didn't get in the police force. Wanted to go and loads of things. I was desperate. I just going to pay to do an accountancy course. I'll do my CMAT, but like I was just like, I just need to do something, and I was bouncing from idea to idea, getting little kicks, and it was the end of the world. And then property just sang to me really in a weird way. And you know, if I probably went onto that course today that I did 17, 18 years ago, I'd probably walk out and it would be everything I'd hate. It would be the get rich quick, you know, it would be the annoying Americanism, load up your credit card, do this, do that. It would probably really piss me off today. But at that point in my life, I could see through all of that salesy, pitchy, emotion-driven stuff, and I could just go, yeah, it makes sense why that person would sell a house on a lease option. It makes sense why that could work, why that could work, why that could work. So honestly, yeah, just a focus and a purpose, and finding something that resonated with what I thought made sense. Saved my life, 100% saved my life.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and I think that and we appreciate that you've shared that with us. And I think it's an important point to note that it's important, certainly for men or for anybody, but definitely men, because there's a stigma attached to not talking about mental health. I'm okay, I'm all right. And I suppose we've all had our moments in life like that. You got the good times, you've also got the bad times as well. And it's about knowing that those bad times will end at some point, and just you've got to keep going. You've got to keep sort of doing the right things. Like you say, you got to focus. You felt you had a purpose, and then that has pulled you out of it and sort of look where you are today.
Yeah, I could talk about mental health for 7 hours, but it's such a difficult subject in that there's a stigma attached to it, but there's also, you know, different people need treating in different ways. I honestly just needed a kick in the ass, but that could be the wrong way to treat another person, or, you know, that person might go into the shell. My personality just would have benefited from somebody just saying, just fucking get on with it. Like, you need to pull your finger out, but I know that's completely terrible for a load of other people. And then there's the mental health, the fact that mental health by nature in our country, for some people, everybody feels that they're mentally, like, there's a mental health issue, and it's like a bit of a default now. And I would probably argue not everyone who feels that way is 100% that way as well. So you don't want to diminish, you know, in the modern world, you don't want to diminish how anyone else is feeling and all of these things. So it's just such a difficult subject because of people needing different things, and sometimes it being used as a crutch that you know, as somebody who genuinely struggled, for me it's kind of like, I don't know if that's just, you know, I hate doubting people and all of that. So it's a very 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 difficult subject matter to sort of talk about. But no matter what degree of mental health challenge you're having, I think I am evidence, and a lot of other people are evidence, that you can get better, but it is going to take some effort from you as well. Like, I didn't just get better because I just got better. I took ownership of the fact that I wasn't well, and I went and tried to find a new purpose and attach myself to that purpose and moved forward. And you know, that when we talk about the marginal gains, getting a little bit better every day, that's how I recovered from my mental health illness. And actually, it's probably been the thing that's made me so successful, is because that's how I got out of being ill. Just going and getting a little bit better every day, like feeling a little bit better every day, improving, speaking to one more person, you know, doing a little bit more exercise, going and socializing a little bit more. And that, you know, I didn't, weirdly, just kind of phased myself out of the illness, which is a strange thing. Don't think I ever went into a position where I was like really ill and the next day I'm fine. Just gradually got slightly better over a period of probably 12 to 18 months. And you look back at that person now, I know I could never be that person again, but I could struggle again. I genuinely believe that. But I've got the tools now to resolve that quicker than what happened last time, I think.
If that did happen now, how would you reach out
to someone else?
Yeah.
I know who I'd reach out to is more of the answer. There are people in my life now that would give me the type of talking to that I would need now that weren't in my life back then. So it's more the people I would speak to who would give me sort of relativity, proportionality, calm me down, you know, give me reasoning, point out the good things, point out where I've cocked up and how I can clean it up. They're the type of people I'd reach out to now. So I have a different set of people in my life rather than doing anything different, because I'd just do the same again. It would be marginally get better, marginally improve things in that area of my life. But no, I think I've got the people around me now who would give me what I needed more than I had them. People think just saying, like, cuddling you and telling you everything's going to be okay is helping. It's the worst thing for me, because I felt like a burden for those people, and I felt like I was bringing them down. And also, I hate the line, it's going to be okay, or everything will be okay, because you kind of go, well, it doesn't fucking feel okay right now. So you just saying everything will be okay isn't a logical solution for me to make it okay. Whereas now, I think the people that I've got around me now would know what I needed, and would some of them would deliver it with great pleasure, I imagine, a good kick up the arse. But yeah. So it's different, as I say, it's horses and courses. That wouldn't be right for everyone. But I think if you are not in a good place, getting around people that will give you what you need and get you in a better place is probably a good solution.
I've heard it said by Simon Sinek, I think it was, that if you've got somebody in your life that needs support, you said yourself, it'll be okay isn't a great way to approach somebody. Simon talks about sitting in the mud with them. Just being there and say, I will sit in the mud with you until you're ready, and I'm there for you. We'll get through this together.
100%. And the people in my life now have been through what I went through to an extent, or they're also doing the same things day to day, because there's a trigger that drives you emotionally when you have, obviously they talk about the original trigger, but now it can be a certain things that remind you of the time back then, or a certain reaction that you have now that reminds you of the time back then, and you can go back to an interesting place. So it's how quickly you can get yourself out of that, I would say.
I mean, it's amazing what you've achieved, and obviously from where you were, as ill as you were. You talk about, your HMO portfolio, your apartment hotels. You're a big developer. You have Premiership footballers viewing your developments with a view to buy the dwellings that you've built. But so, being that successful now, what is your motivation to carry on, and why do you do it?
Growth. I'm obsessed with growth. My business partner will be a billionaire. I have no doubt in my mind. I've never met somebody who I've sat with who just loves the grind that much, and who having that title means something to. He won't spend £1 billion when he has £1 billion, but it just means something to him to be a billionaire. I can't disconnect the fact that I will never spend £1 billion. So for me, I've always gone, I don't really want to be a billionaire, because I won't spend £1 billion. The juice isn't worth the squeeze for me. If I had £1 billion, I won't spend it. But I do believe that I have an obligation to continue to grow, because there's no downside to my growth. I benefit, everyone around me benefits, the economy benefits, the taxman benefits. There's no downside to that. So as long as I can see continual organic growth year on year, if our occupancy rate is 10% higher than it was last year, if I can do 10% more prosperity membership than last year, if our cash flow increases by 10%, that 10% in a year is chunky. So for me, that's it. I just want to see year on year growth, and that will get me where it's meant to get me by the time I die, basically, and we'll be a very strong position. But if I'm growing, I'm happy. If I'm stagnant or going backwards, that's a challenge.
If you're not growing, you're dying, aren't you?
100%.
So how do you see the property market evolving in the years to come, and what strategies do you think are going to be relevant, and what do you think we're going to need to do to evolve into whatever the new market brings?
Nearly 20 years in, I can honestly say we are in the middle of the biggest housing crisis I have ever seen by a long, long way. We are growing in population. We're nearly 3 million people up since pre-COVID, and we don't build enough houses for the volume of people we already have, let alone the amount of people we're let in. The UK is in the middle of a rental crisis. There is far too little supply and far too much demand. I think housing will have to be built or developed or grown as a stock supply level far faster than it has in history for it to stop being a crisis. We have a crisis at every level. There's not enough social housing. There's not enough asylum seeker housing. There's not enough student housing. There's not enough normal rental housing. Every single part of the housing market is in a crisis. And the government are doing very little to solve it because it's not politically fashionable to support people like us who would be the ones to solve the issue. In reality, it's not going to get solved by the government. They don't have the money or the manpower. They're making more cuts to manpower as we speak, so they can't deliver it. So they need to rely on the private sector. But if they give disgusting, filthy parasite investment landlords and developers more money to deliver the housing that's needed, that will drive down house prices or keep them stable, and will drive down rental prices or keep them stable, then that's not going to win them votes. And everything at the moment's about votes. So if you ask me for the next 3 or 4 years, we're in the shit, is the honest answer. Which is great. If you were to take a complete capitalist view of this, that's amazing for an investor, where there's not going to be enough housing, there's going to be more and more supply, right? Prices are going to go up, rents and house prices absolutely going to go up. That's amazing if you were a cynical bar steward. As somebody who has a little bit of a social interest and wants to see the country as a whole do well, survive, flourish, which not a lot of people think investors want to happen, it's awful. It's genuinely scary. It's actually a bit of a disgrace. So yeah, better if you're talking returns, you're talking rents, you're talking sale prices, amazing. If you're talking for society, terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
So if you're PM for one day,
yeah,
what would you do? What's the one thing you would do
end democracy?
That would solve the housing crisis.
Would really help. Yeah, 99% of the housing problems are that the government can't make the changes they need because they're afraid of backlash from the public. They can't make the planning reform that's required in case Julie at number 22 is absolutely furious that someone's building 100 flats on her street. They can't do it because it doesn't win votes. So the policy changes that they need to make does not win votes. Democracy is so well intended, but really horrific in practice. Doesn't work. And I split my time with Dubai, and you can say what you want about Dubai. I know what everybody says about Dubai. If you ask me who's freer as a country, and if you ask me where the world's money is going to go to and where is going to develop the most and where's safest and cleanest and happiest, it's the East. And it's because the people get to live their life within parameters that they are told, absolutely. But most people are happy within those parameters, quite comfortable. So it would be horrific. It won't be a popular answer. I'm sure I'll get hammered in some of the comments to end democracy. I value democracy. I just don't think it works in our country anymore.
I mean, so that's a very candid view, and it's appreciated. And you've given us your views on democracy. You've given us your views on the property market and what that looks like for the future. But what does the future look like for Prosperity Network? Are there any new initiatives you're excited about, or areas of growth? And what does that look like? How can people find out about that?
We are very close to capping it. And no one ever believed me that I would cap it, but we're very, very close to capping it. So we were always going to cap originally at 1,000, and it was probably a negatively driven reason that we said 1,000. And it was because I only thought that there was 1,000 genuine, serious, active people in the property space. So probably a pessimistic view, because actually some of our recent members are fantastic quality, yourself included. People like Oliver Adams are very, very active and able people in the property space. But I don't want to make it the sausage factory that a lot of these spaces have been. I just want it to be a really active, honest community that are doing stuff in property and are benefiting because they're speaking to everybody else who's doing stuff in property. I've always viewed Prosperity as the graduate scheme for property investors. A lot of people call us that. It's kind of like they've gone elsewhere, they've learned a bit elsewhere, they might have struggled, but then they come to Prosperity and, you know, get the more real picture potentially on what's likely to happen or possible to happen. So we're at 950 members now, and I always said we're going to cap it at 1,000. So it's close. It's very, very close. And then we might end up one in, one out. It creates an exclusivity. There's a load of, I know the sales angles to it, but none of it's meant from the sales angles. It's to try and effectively not dilute the quality. We just want to keep the quality of the person up, makes my job really easy leading it, because nobody comes to me and goes, you said I'd be fucking able to do 20,000 a month cash flow in 6 months. Why? And no one really, I don't get slagged off much on social media that I see like a lot of other people. And it's because I don't create a false expectation, or we definitely don't create a false expectation. And we attract good people, and then good people attract good people. And it's kind of become self-perpetuating. Don't spend a penny on paid advertising. Never have.
No, I mean, it's a quality over quantity situation. It is a great community. Although I have my own community, I'm a very proud member of Prosperity. It's in the short space that I've been a member of it, it's done a lot for me.
Amazing.
And I'd absolutely recommend it. You are a highly intelligent, astute individual, and you lead the way in terms of investment perspectives and your outlook on the economy and strategies.
Thanks. Yeah, that was important for me, to stay active at the front end, both in property and at the front end of Prosperity, is very important. I think too many people in our space effectively make a parody of the space a little bit. And it's all well intended. I get it. You've done amazing. Your community is amazing. But there's so many communities out there, and people go away to start their own thing. I think they underestimate how difficult it is, and they overestimate their ability in doing it. And if you don't build to a critical mass, you're just better off buying property. You're better off sticking in that space that most know and most do, and buying property. You've grown incredibly quickly. We've grown quickly. There's value in having a fantastic community. But if it doesn't get to that critical mass level, it's not worth your time. You're better off doing property. And I say it all the time, if I didn't have my business partner overlooking delivery, I couldn't do Prosperity. No chance. I couldn't do it and do the volume of property that we do. I won't be able to deliver both. It'd be absolutely no chance.
I mean, it is immensely difficult to sort of run a community, the networking events, the stuff behind the scenes. It is more than a full-time job in itself, and then obviously you've got everything else on top of that. But I suppose it's back to your point, you've got to be ruthless with your time. You've got to be doing those £500 an hour tasks, prioritising correctly, and sort of being organised.
Employ well. That's the one big thing I would say, and definitely for you with your growth as it comes, get good people around you early, get good advice as you are. But yeah, employ well, because if you're going to pass responsibility to people, they've got to be responsible for taking it.
Who, not how.
Who, not how, definitely.
So finally, Danny, what's one thing that you don't want most people to know about you?
Currently, that I'm a Man United fan, but a serious Man United fan as well, unfortunately. I'm probably going to be tipping James £100 at the end of the year. One thing that I don't want people to know about me. Oh, God, that has stumped me. Other than a United fan, I owned a letting agency, and I can empathise with letting agents. That's probably another one, because everyone hates letting agents. I sold a letting agency. We did pretty well out of it. I strongly recommend no one does it. Like, it's a shocking business. Very, 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 very... You're in the middle of two people that principally don't really like each other in landlord and tenant typically, and you can't win. And all of your bad work is unpaid, because chasing rent arrears, you only get paid out of the rents that are received. So rent arrears, court, all of that stuff. Your worst part of business is you're not paid. So yeah, former letting agent and very current devout season ticket holder at Man United are probably the two things that I'm not ashamed of, but trying to not shout about too much.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Danny, for your time. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much. And anybody who's listening, if you've taken any inspiration from Danny or any insight, or you've got an investment idea from the show, if you'd like to comment in the comments section, give us a follow or share it with your wider audience. We really appreciate it.
So thanks everyone for tuning into this episode. If you liked it and you got value out of it, then please share it on your socials and in your network. And if you didn't like it, then tell me and tell James, because, we really appreciate any feedback so we can continue to make the show better and have more brilliant guests like Danny. So thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming, mate. And thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time.
On Let's Chat.
Thank you.